Let's just dive right in. Today, we're exploring a really vital shift in education, moving inclusion from just a nice idea, a reflection, into concrete, real-world action. If you're an educator, you already know the struggle. We get all these high-level theories in professional development, but then the bell rings, the kids walk in, and, well, it's a whole different ballgame. We are going to unpack exactly how to bridge that gap and transform how your learning environment actually functions day to day.
So let me ask you this. Why do some students just go quiet in your classroom? I want you to picture those specific learners for a second. You know the ones. The students who sort of fade into the background, who rarely raise their hands, or completely disengage the second a complex task begins. We've all seen it, right? It can be incredibly frustrating when you're pouring your heart out trying to reach everyone. But what's actually driving that disconnect?
Well, traditionally, we've relied on what's called a learner deficit model. Basically, we look at a struggling kid and instinctively ask, okay, what is wrong with this learner? Are they unmotivated? Is there a language barrier? But modern inclusive pedagogy completely flips the script. Instead of blaming the student, we need to ask, where is the mismatch between this learner and our environment? The problem doesn't live inside the student, it's a gap between what they need and the rigid structure we've built. Like if you have a kid who literally needs to move around to focus, but the unwritten rule of your room is sit completely still for an hour, that is not a student deficit, that's a system mismatch.
Which brings us to Section 1, Rethinking the Inclusive Classroom. To fix that mismatch, we've got to look closely at the spaces we're creating. And here is the really tricky part. We all have these deeply ingrained classroom routines, how we do group work, how we assess, even how we ask questions. And to us, they feel completely neutral, just normal. We've always done it that way. But as researcher Dignath and colleagues point out, these so-called normal routines often unintentionally privilege some learners while totally marginalizing others. When a routine feels completely natural to us, we easily miss how it acts as an invisible wall for a student who doesn't perfectly fit that mold. So let's move to Section 2, the mirror of teacher beliefs. If our routines aren't neutral, we have to turn the analytical lens inward. Let's talk about teacher beliefs. Actually, a better way to look at them is that they aren't objective facts at all. They're a really complex system of tacit theories, values, and assumptions that act like cognitive filters. Every single pedagogical decision you make, grading, discipline, who you praise, and why, passes right through this hidden filter first. We process every new classroom interaction based on what we deeply believe to be true. And honestly, we usually don't even realize we're doing it. And those filters, they're tied directly to our own identity markers and our positionality, basically where we stand in society. We've got visible markers like gender or perceived ethnicity, and then we have the invisible ones, socioeconomic background, neurodiversity, or the languages spoken at home. All of this creates our habitus, which is just a fancy way of describing our everyday vibe, our deeply ingrained habits and our default assumptions. And at the end of the day, that habitus determines whether our students look at the culture we've built and actually feel a genuine, safe sense of belonging. Moving right along to Section 3, Navigating Policies and Systems. Let's zoom out from our internal beliefs to the massive systems we deal with daily. Because let's be real, you don't operate in a vacuum. On one hand, you've got these top-down legal mandates, like the UN Sustainable Development Goals or big human rights frameworks. Beautifully written, perfect on paper. On the other hand, your actual classroom reality. Under-resourced schools, huge class sizes, heavy workloads, and totally packed timetables. The gap between those high-level policies and the chaos on the ground is massive, and frankly, it can feel pretty overwhelming. But because of that massive gap, true inclusion cannot just be mechanical compliance. It's not just checking a box. It requires you to critically adapt those broad frameworks to fit the messy, wonderful reality of your specific classroom. You are literally the bridge between the ideal policy and the actual kids sitting right in front of you. Which leads us to Section 4, transitioning from reflection to action. How do we actually build that bridge? Let's zoom back into what you can control. This is where the action research spiral comes in. It's a super practical 1, 2, 3, 4 guide to closing that gap. Step 1, plan. Just identify one specific mismatch in your room. Don't try to solve the whole world at once. Step 2, act. Implement a small, totally feasible change. Step 3, observe. Gather evidence to see exactly what happens. And step 4, reflect. Evaluate the impact and tweak as needed. It's a simple, repeating cycle that turns high-level theory into something you can literally do tomorrow morning. But a quick heads up, please don't do this in a silo. You absolutely need multiple perspectives to know what's working. Give your learners short reflection prompts. Do identity tasks with them.
Use anonymous feedback boxes so they can finish sentences like, I find it difficult to participate when, without any fear of judgment. You should even invite your peers in for observation. Sharing this inquiry process is exactly how we expose those invisible barriers and hidden constraints we talked about earlier. So, I want to leave you with a lingering question. Think about your learning environment right now. What unwritten, normal rule can you challenge today? Maybe it's how you call on students or how you structure quiet time. True inclusion starts the second you decide to question the everyday routines we just take for granted. Thanks for hanging out for this explainer, and I really hope you step into your classroom tomorrow feeling fully empowered to make that vital shift.